in the sense that if there is a complete lack, or there was traditionally a lack of incentives in the sense of those exact same forces, market forces, economics of being a university, and what that gave rise is to a body that is dissociated from society. And the way I'm an academic, but I think that I hear many times, and I have to fight very often, ideas of very aggressive ideas of the society towards university here in Portugal as being a corporation of self-promoting people who have no understanding of, and have little understanding of that they need to serve a purpose, that the taxpayers pay their services and that or pay their salaries, and that the public universities, that is, and that there is a sense of giving back to the society that isn't there. I think that's obviously a bit unfair, a bit extreme, but there is that element. So I think that the difficulty, I think, in this debate is, where do we fit universities so that they play a role in society and do what they need to do for society, because that's what the taxpayers expect from the universities, while at the same time not be engulfed in behaviors that can lead to their auto-destruction. Okay? Because I think here at the extremes, we have auto-destruction at both. If they become completely relevant, or if they become completely obsessed and engulfed with the market, then we have at both ends a bad result. And I think that's the center of the debate, is that one: where is the compromise in there? That was one idea I wanted to bring. The second one is, as head of the Research Council, is about science and science in university. I guess that's why you invited me here. And I think that in Portugal, I think the debate has been around whether science is best performed outside or inside universities. And I think that, this is just my personal opinion here, is that I think that it's much better, but not exclusively, to be performed inside universities, because that's where, that's what universities are for, not just, but I think that's one of the main objectives in terms of that universities, or the purpose of the universities should be in driving new knowledge, new technology, and I think that this is really a big debate in Portugal that we can discuss in more detail, but that hasn't really been solved. And I think that historically it hasn't been solved, or there was a trend towards moving science from the universities to the outside, because there was an inability to reform the universities in order to let it perform science competitively. But I think that's not the right way of thinking. I think we should create the right incentives so that universities are centers of great science and technology, that can, from where, with liaison, important liaison with the society and the businesses around them. So I guess this is really the main idea that I wanted to bring. I think that we actually, in this system, and in Southern Europe, the prevailing system is one of separation. So we have, in France, we have a big system of the CNRS and the universities, and that has dissociated science from universities. And now I think that that system has proved inefficient in terms of costs, and so I think that the system in the UK, for example, is much more efficient in terms of outputs. I wouldn't say perfect, but I think in terms of outputs where the university is in science, of course. There should be research centers that are doing research on their own, but they should not be the main drivers. They're complementing. It's okay. I finished my time.
Thank you very much. Just wait for the round of applause to the end of the debate, all right? Well, we can always take different approaches when you're chairing a session. And because we have some time, and before giving the word to the audience, I just want to say and ask some questions. But I will say them and ask them from a generational point of view. I'll try to be fast. I'm 31 now. When I was 14 or 15 years old, my teachers at school told me, so you have to choose. You have to choose between science, economy, or the humanities. And I told them, well, I have no idea what I want to choose. So we'll have a psychologist, and he will guide you throughout the process and help you choose, an area. So I went to these sessions, and the advisor told me, okay, you're good with words, you're good with language, so go and study humanities. And I said, okay, I'll go and study humanities. 3 years later, I'm applying for a university, and I have no idea what I want to study. And I said, so what should I do? I said, study languages, study literature. What am I going to do with language and literature? Well, I can always be a teacher. And everything that was told, and I'm saying this because we ended the debate the same way we started, by asking university, what is it good for? And the whole time, throughout this 3-year process, I was always told that every decision you had to make was driven by the need to have a job, because once you finish university, you have to get a job. But when I ended at university, it was hard getting a job, and even though the only thing that was told to me and told to all of my colleagues was that we were supposed to get a job. So I'm taking what Teresa Salema told, that you're not expected to study in order to get a job. So I'm asking to all of the speakers, obviously, what should students expect? What should be expectations of students once they go in and decide to study in university? And also, because there is a certain nostalgia, which I only later understood and perceived, about the old fashion of teaching and learning, which comes a little bit about the real and the ideal, the metaphysical side of teaching. And is it still possible to have that model of teaching? If so, how? How is that possible? I don't know if you want to respect the same order. Yeah? Okay. So, Angus.
But just quickly listening to what everybody was saying, I mean, it just strikes me that if you paint a little picture, maybe I'm picking up on Miguel's comments at the end about relevance to society. I think when universities were founded or colleges were founded, sometimes with a religious impulse, they intentionally turned their back on society and didn't try to be relevant to it. They tried to separate themselves from society to create a special place in which they could pursue what interested them, knowledge. I think that model's been completely turned around. What we've seen, certainly in the last 20 to 30 years, accelerate, but actually it's been happening since the end of the 19th century, when in the US there were demands that universities allow students to choose whatever they wanted to do in order to create a very specialized set of skills for the labor market. So university, over the last 100 or so years, has turned around to face society and increasingly said how open it is to society. Access is a big buzzword in universities, and it's all about letting more people in. And I just think there's a problem there. Firstly, it's a betrayal, if you like, of the purpose of the university in terms of being for knowledge, for its own sake. And secondly, I mean, to be maybe slightly controversial, the university is not for everyone. Not everybody should go to university.
So who should go to university?
People who have a love of knowledge for its own sake, who have an aspiration to be academic. I know that's an ideal picture, and I certainly don't want people not to have fun at university, but I do want them to have a passion for their subject and want to pursue it for its own sake, whether that's fun or not. It may also involve a lot of time in the library, reading some quite difficult things and challenging yourself. I think I like Rui's term about a hijack of the term university. It's been very much turned around and opened out. And I think the irony of the knowledge explosion that we're all meant to be so happy about is like any explosion. It started in the middle and it's blown outwards. I'm not sure there's much left in the university anymore. You know, students aren't full-time in the way they used to be. Academics don't have tenure in the way they used to have. Anna is completely right to defend the idea of liberal academic freedom, but there's less freedom to say and think what you like on university campuses now than there ever has been before. It's not just salad codes, speech codes are everywhere. So I'm not sure universities are what they used to be anymore. The learning's online, learning's for life, like a sentence. You know, you never get away. You're like a drug addict in recovery, lifelong learning. It's like all of this, I think, just means for me that I'm not sure we have a shared model of what it is to be an educated human being anymore. And if we don't have that shared model about what matters in terms of knowledge, then the university will have something of an existential crisis.
I'm not sure that I quite understood where I could comment, but I would say that the main question would be, what are universities for? And as a corporation, and as a citizen, and as a mother, I face the same problem with my kid that you faced a few years ago, right? Because the psychologist said everything. And so what should he choose, right? He should choose what he loves to know. He should choose his passion. I'm not sure he has identified his passion yet, but I'm sure that when he has identified that passion, it might be just, understanding. Or I remember. Yes, I have a collaborator in my team, which passion was history, right? And he was told to go to become an advocate, a lawyer. And he said, no, I don't like lawyers. I want to study history. He's now in my team, right? And we're a technology company. And I would say that his perspective is really very welcome, right? Because we do need all the types of different subjects to make a solution of a problem, as I said. So he studied what he loved most, which was history, right? And he was able, in fact, he created his own job, right? He first started by touring Lisbon and guiding tourists with a historical perspective. And that's quite a way to make value with what you know. And what I'm saying here is that when you are at university, you should be expert and an expert in something that you want, have a passion for. And that you must be able to continue that passion. Yes, you must continue to learn throughout life. I, as an engineer, I'm an engineer by background, when I studied engineering, there were no mobiles, right? And I'm sure that if I had not come to the university again and to other forms of education and training, I wouldn't be able to use my smartphone now, right? Because, I did not know how mobile worked, right? So I had to update my knowledge to continue to be and create value within my corporation. So I would say essentially that universities must build this passion for excellency and teach how to continue to learn throughout life.
Well, I felt provoked by the idea that the university should not be for everyone. So first of all, if I may, I'd like to battle on that, saying that if we ask who are universities for, I would defend that universities should be for everyone, because everyone is a potential expert in something. Now, they should be for everyone who wants to do university and to follow that path. I would not ever defend the idea that university schooling should be compulsory, not at all. But if we understand that knowledge is a flower bed for knowledge, then universities should be accessible to everyone and not closed to anyone at all. That's the first idea. Second, I think that the existential crisis that universities are indeed undergoing now derives from the general social idea, and Teodoro explained that very well, from the social idea of organization towards financial value, financial potential, economic value. I can remember, for instance, about the defense of the Portuguese language is much fierce now, that we have the argument that Portuguese language is the third most important language in, for instance, in gas business in the world. So then it becomes important if it's financial value. And this is general, this is affecting all areas of society. But if we draw back a little bit from our from our historical moment, and try to think historically at a distance or from a distance, we should see that it is university knowledge or universal knowledge, or what I try to call liberal knowledge, that allows us to consider our situation as contingent and as something that can be overcome and can always be looked at from a distance and from somewhere where we would not feel enslaved. And I go back to the other remarks, enslaved by a purpose, namely merely financial purpose, because I don't think it's wrong to have a financial purpose. I think it's wrong to have one purpose only and to deride all others. So I would like to say.
I took 4 notes that I think can help. First, I think that now universities, probably the main function, are to delay the entering on the work market for young adults. That's probably the most, and that is targeted. Yeah, it's even happening at the post-graduate studies, and it's interesting that I've seen that in the United States and in Europe, in England, for example, in the early 80s, and it was difficult for me to understand that. Now that we have that here, so it's easy to understand. So probably the main goal of the universities, the society's main goal is just delaying the entering on the market. And that's also a consequence of our societies are not prepared to create jobs, not necessary work for all citizens. If we look carefully at how things have changed and the trends, it's to be very difficult to create jobs, at least the kind of jobs that are not mini jobs like in Germany. I don't know if you are familiar, but for example, in Germany, about 20% of the workforce have what they call mini jobs. And in the United States, percentage of minute jobs is more than that. So I don't know what's the solution, but this will become a very strong problem, a very important problem in the end. We can anticipate that in Spain and Greece, where about 70% of young people are unemployed, we will see what will happen in the following years. It's interesting to note that most questions that we are asking now about the importance of universities has been done about the importance of high school in 1 century ago. And no one now asks the same questions for high school. So probably it will be very interesting to see what that discussion has led to us. And even when I was a child, going to school was something that people, why are you going to school? What's the use of that? So, and it was not necessary a century ago. And just a final comment. When someone asked to me, what's the main goal of teaching and learning, not only on the universities, but at all levels, I think it's very clear. And that's just a few words. Increase the autonomy and the perspectives of the learner. I will repeat, increase the autonomy and the perspectives of the learner. Not necessary to learn something useful, but to become autonomous. And now with our type of society, I think that's the most relevant skill. If you look at the style of most teaching in most countries, and you can find exactly the opposite. And I've just been reading a very interesting brochure on the Dictator Guide to Policy in Education. And it's interesting because most of the ideas that we see in practice now are expressed in this short document.
Well, now we have the dictatorship of the realists. They don't have ideology. You have ideology. If you say today it's raining, they will say you are being ideological. It's sunny. So that is also why social sciences and humanities are interesting, to say the same thing as Teodoro says. So nowadays also the idea of dream, like there is a very kitsch Italian writer, Susanna Tamaro, as a title, with the title, Follow Thy Heart, Go Where the Heart Takes You. We forget, we think it's romantic kitsch, but we forget that it is actually quite accurate. You have more chances of being successful as a human being, and I'm talking to the microphone, so you are more successful, you have more chances if you follow your heart. That is very sensible, that this is not ideological or romantic.
But why is it not functional?
That is another question, and I answer that question. So if you have the will to choose, you are already privileged, because to be aware of that there is choice is nowadays a luxury. So I answer you what I answer my students. For a couple of years I was teaching in the technology school of my university, and until they found out I was a social parasite. But I was teaching writing and reading. I was teaching basic Portuguese, basic rules and ground rules for them. Someone found out it was useful. And they were all computer engineers. And my problem was, how am I going to sell? Because I myself am a seller now, I'm a university teacher. What can I be? In my university, I hear the dean several times say, we must attract clients. Which is nice. I don't like students, but I enjoy clients. And how can I sell my field how can I get them interested? And I just said, you know that you are all computer engineers, you are all doing that, but in 10 years, the ones who are successful, socially successful of you, will be doing someone for which you were not trained. Only the idiots only the morons among you will be doing actually what you actually learn. Because if you are smart, you go up and you get administrative jobs. You will actually become Steve Jobs or something like that. You are the guy who is leading. And this is, you can see that in our country nowadays we have a prime minister who will not be qualified to be a computer engineer or something like that. Because the society still works like that. Politics in anything, and I mean politics in the good sense of politics, I mean science politics, I mean enterprise politics, I mean every kind, even family politics. The more up you go, the more you have a responsibility, the less you were actually trained to do that stuff. So specialization is very, very good and very important in university, especially after the master's and the PhD, because it turns you good into a goal. It means that you train that thing, not because necessarily you're going to do it, but you learned how to go deep in the field, not just be in shallow waters. So it's nice for you. I don't think you are doing engineering nowadays, Teresa, but it was important for you that you did something, that you stay there. And that's it.
Okay, thank you.
I quite strongly agree with Rui there. And also I'd say that in terms of idealism, I think there's a lot of ideals and idealism at the frontiers of science. What scientists do every day is passion, and it's about ideals, and it's about finding new things and new ideas. So it's, I think that there's a lot of great ideals in frontiers of science. In terms of some of the ideas here, I think in terms of the universities just delaying entrance into the market or just being for academics, I think I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. They're great sound bites, but they're too dramatic and extreme. I think that there are several aspects in terms of, I think first of all, you're ignoring the complexity of the modern world and the psychological development. I mean, a child or a person developing up to 16 or 17 these days is just not able to grasp the complexity of the world and needs some extra years to educate him or herself. In my view. So I think it's just, there's that aspect. There's also the aspect of professionalism, of becoming a profession. I think becoming a medical doctor or an engineer, there are professions. So there are rules of universities that we're not really, that you cannot just at the strike of a sentence, just strike out completely.
We'll now open it up to the audience. I'm sure there's a lot of questions. Who wants to go first? Come on, don't be shy. Otherwise, you'll be here with us for another half an hour.
I would like to talk with you.
Thank you. We have this gentleman in the back. You have a microphone, Daniel. Is it necessary? Can you speak up so we'll listen?
If you hear me well.
Okay. Well, let me just see if someone else wants to say something. Yeah, over there. Anyone else? Okay, so let's first hear those questions, please.
It was many things discussed, but I would like to say, in my opinion, that it is two kinds of knowledge: the knowledge to do something and the knowledge for persons to have, only by curiosity to be themselves. So I suppose the knowledge that universities were on training people, universities are teaching them to do something, but also they are developing more knowledge that isn't exactly knowledge to be applied in something, and that the role of university is also to expand this knowledge. So when I heard that, I always remember the drawing about PhD, in which PhD is always expanding. One PhD student is always expanding a little, some knowledge, global knowledge of the society. So I suppose higher universities, this discourse that universities are doing to the market. So I suppose there is something of a sentiment of failure in doing something, but not in having the pleasure to expand knowledge, to apply knowledge in other areas.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, come in the back, please.
Yeah, I have a lot to say, but at the same time I have to be
As
very
quick as possible,
quick as
please.
possible.
Yeah.
I understand the Angus anxiety, because you have to have a civilizational perspective to understand that English, because it's a certain it's a political anxiety of Europe facing not just Europe, but Europe and US facing China and India as a large-scale approach to reality and to and knowledge and power. At the same time, it's a metaphysical question, because it's about how truth is reached and communicated. At the same time, what is now the decision matrix? And this is very complex, because it's now something not really human. So it's like a code. It's a flux of information. But let me point to second question. Most of the most interesting thinkers of the world in the Western history are outside of academia. From ancient Greek to nowadays, the most interesting thinkers are not academic and teacher. It starts this connection after Wolff in the 18th century. So Kant and Hegel are academic, but not kicked out. In a certain moment, not Nietzsche, then he got mad, not Wittgenstein in a certain sense. So there is a marginality of the really creative, inventive of mind. And most of the academics are just middle size in that creativity. So there is nevertheless a very important thing, what is calling is the charismatic approach, the attitude of the teacher that is not substituted with e-learning of the open access information. And this charisma of the teacher is not just a positive. Not even the teacher himself know about his experience and the way is communicated by his doubts, his dilemmas, that the students understand how is a living knowledge. And this, because I turn into the other question, there is a non-pragmatic approach to knowledge. This is the completely opposite of the lack of the quality of the politicians in the Western world in the last decades. It's clear in Portugal that the scientific committee of the Fundação Ciência e Tecnologia was headed by the most interesting scholars like Fernando Gil. And you look now, you see what kind of persons are there. And the opposition between society and university emerge when the lack of quality of the politicians is evident, like nowadays. When we see that what is looking at university is something that is out of the common knowledge, the Greeks call it nous or sapientia. And this is lacking now, this kind of wisdom that is overcoming, but is trespassing, is flowing through university, but is going out of the university world.
Should we replace then knowledge for wisdom?
You have not replaced, it's always there.
Okay.
But it's few people know that.
Okay, thank you. Rob, you want to ask something?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of sympathy, or I resonate to Angus's sort of principled defense of what universities should be for, defense of knowledge, building knowledge, passing on knowledge. And of course, historically, that role arises out of religious institutions. And so there was a kind of ideology, if you like, behind it, which gave that a reason. Now, I think one problem is it's not just that universities have to serve many different goals and many different functions, which of course they do, but it's not really clear that basic function is anything the universities are really standing up to try to defend anymore. So we've got we've actually heard quite a few good defences both on the panel and from the floor today. But if you go into universities quite often today, what you'll find is many people defending very specialised parts of knowledge, actually against the very idea of universal knowledge. People will often say there is no such thing as truth. So it's almost like at least in the arts parts of universities, the humanities sides of universities, there's a kind of unhappiness and sort of leeriness with the very idea of a kind of universal knowledge institution, which actually makes universities particularly ill-fitted to defend themselves. So, I mean, I do think that kind of throws, obviously there's a whole bunch of crises in Portugal at the moment, including the financial crisis, but it does throw this question back on universities that, that really maybe they should try a bit harder to answer this question of what they're really for. And if they do believe that they're doing the sort of thing that Angus does, maybe they're doing a particularly bad job of actually defending themselves.
Maybe in part it's because we're confusing financial crisis with the university crisis. And, we all know that universities depend on money. It shouldn't go hand in hand. Any more questions before we can hear the panel? Okay, so, yeah, sure.
Well, reflecting on those, and also I just want to sort of agree a bit, Miguel. Yes, I'm painting too bright a picture, and of course you're absolutely right about the role of professions, the law, and so on, who have a slightly different status at the university. But where I would agree less is in terms of the complexity now of the modern world. And I think that maybe the modern world appears so complex partly because of the failure of the university to adequately explain it. And in that sense, justifying the university in terms of the complexity is a self-serving argument, I'm afraid, because going back to what I said at the beginning, I think it's the university's job to generalise from the complexity of experience, firstly. And secondly, I'm not convinced that it really is that complex. I think it appears that complex to us because while there should be a relationship in the university that's open to the future and to the change and building new knowledge, there's another part of it which should look backwards. And in its educative role is to pass on what we've learned before. Now, both things need to be in balance. I think what's part of the root of the problem is that the university, if you like, and society has been cut off from history. We're uncomfortable with where we came from, with tradition. And that has the effect of opening us up to the future too much, which is unpredictable. And so we then say everything's changing, we don't know what's going to happen, we'll have to keep learning new things over and over and over again, and we feel a bit out of control. And that then makes you justify what you're doing as being useful for something else, rather than being something that you feel has a solid foundation that you could go from. And you're nodding, we all feel this problem in many ways in modern life, I think. But the effect on autonomy of the university, which is the sort of autonomy that we haven't talked about. We've talked about autonomy of the individual, but the autonomy as an institution, which is vital, must be defended in terms of recovering some sense of, and to be precise about the word, some sense of the university's irrelevance to society. Its autonomy must consist in that to some sense, to refuse to be so very relevant to a world that continues to change.
Anyone else? You want to say something?
I say that one of the issues is exactly to teach the past and the knowledge, which is duplicating every I don't know how many years, but while before, I think 50 years ago, it was probably quite easy to repackage the past knowledge. These days, that effort needs to be done much faster, and there's just not enough time, because then you have inadequacies in terms of then what comes before university, in terms of adapting those courses. So that's why I think it is a complex point.
I'd just like to comment on something that we didn't speak about in this session, but I think might be part of the answer, especially for people that are now unemployed. And this area that I was just going to present would start as a question, saying, are we teaching the right things? Because if you go into the job ads that you have, corporations are looking for other things. Corporations are looking, for example, for creativity. Corporations are looking for problem solving. You know, as an engineer, I really think really about that. But a manager also solves problems and has to do an efficient resource management. And this is cross-discipline, and this is something that should be worked about at the university. You know, having the possibility to, for example, put a project with different areas, for example, right? Because the corporations are looking, as I said, for problem solving. I was just going through a list of things like proactivity, things like vision. I want someone which has a vision of the sector. I want someone which has leadership capacities. I want someone which has innovative capacities. I mean, this is what corporations are looking for, right?
Can I ask a question? Then why do corporations not absorb PhDs? Portugal has the lowest rate of PhDs, and these are people who are tested in solving problems and fit exactly your bill. And yet we just presented the study, and we are very concerned about this, and we want to put incentives for corporations to bring in more people, because those are exactly, our pitch is that those are exactly the people you need.
Well, I think that those people are very necessary to actually, you know, add value and create new things. And this is the way to, you know, build a way out of this crisis. Of course, it's a long way. So, I mean, probably companies in Portugal are not ready to incorporate yet PhDs because they do not think this way. But if you look just into the ads and the words, they look exactly as I said. And they look at things like, as I mentioned, creativity, proactivity, things like leadership, vision, and so on and so forth. So these are soft skills, I know, but they can be trained also at the university.